Who doesn't love it when someone just derails a perfectly rational conversation with a good old straw man argument or a dash of ad hominem attacks? When you're trying to have a constructive conversation or disagreement, there is nothing quite as satisfying as having someone throw in a slippery slope or a red herring just to keep things interesting, right? I mean, who needs logical, evidence-based discussions when we can have fallacies galore? In all seriousness, though, logical fallacies are annoying and frustrating because they hinder genuine communication and understanding. I'm Lisa Sonni, and I am diving deep into something that I continually see used by abusers to maintain control. Logical fallacies keep you trapped in a cycle of no-win arguments with abusers, narcissists, and other toxic and exploitative people. It's a roller coaster that we've all ridden, and by the end of this video, I want you to have the tools to hop off that ride for good. Stick around to the end because I'm actually going to share the most common and the most frustrating fallacy that abusers employ, and frankly, the one that pisses me off the most. I'm not just a certified relationship coach, I'm a survivor of domestic assault and narcissistic abuse turned abuse educator, and I specialize in helping people exit and heal from toxic and abusive relationships. It's important to know that not only abusers use logical fallacies. Ironically, it would be a logical fallacy to suggest that I'm saying that. People who lack critical thinking skills also use them, even politicians, internet trolls, and just deceptive manipulators. So do people use them on purpose? Absolutely. But people in heated arguments, sometimes advocates, or just other well-intentioned people, they use them too, but usually inadvertently. Now that said, this video is all about how abusers use logical fallacies as weapons of control. So let me break down why and how it benefits the abusive person making the fallacy. Hit subscribe so you can watch more content like this on my channel. You see, logical fallacies are like secret weapons for manipulators. They're used to confuse, to control, dominate the narrative of a relationship. And it's all about maintaining power and keeping you in that cycle of abuse. Now, let's not waste any more time. I want to dive into the 8 most common fallacies. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to share why they're so successful. And honestly, most importantly, what you can do to respond to them. Fallacy number 1, ad hominem. This one's a classic. Okay, the abuser attacks you personally instead of addressing the actual argument. Ad hominem means to the person in Latin, and it's like you saying, I feel hurt when you yell, and then he fires back with, you're just too emotional all the time. It's your problem. It's not my problem. That's an ad hominem. Now, they might say you're too sensitive, everything upsets you, or why should I listen to you? You can't even handle your own life. When someone starts attacking you personally instead of addressing the actual argument, yeah, that's a pretty effective way of just messing up the conversation. It's like you're talking about something important and they just hit you with dismissive statements that make you feel attacked. And it works because it gets you feeling riled up and defensive. And now you're more focused on defending yourself, not the actual topic of the argument. Plus, it's a sneaky way to avoid providing any real evidence or logical reasoning for their own side of the argument. It is infuriating. Okay, so the next fallacy is the straw man. Here, they're going to twist your argument into something else entirely, making it easier to attack. It's like you say, I feel hurt when you yell, and he misrepresents it by saying, so I'm not even allowed to speak my mind? That's a straw man. You might express concern. You might say, you always get mad at me for seeing my friends. Every time I go out with them, you give me the silent treatment. And the abuser replies, oh, so I'm the bad guy just because I want you to have some independence, because I want to spend time with you. You're making it sound like I'm controlling monster when all I've ever done is support your social life. Strawman fallacies are so destructive because they actually twist that original argument and then they create a fake one. This misrepresentation diverts attention from the real issue, avoiding accountability, which we all know that, like, narcissists in particular love to do. They derail the conversation because when you can't win an argument with reason and logic, why not just create your own imaginary battle to fight? Who needs to address the actual issues when you can have a good old make-believe debate, am I right? Next, fallacy number 3, circular reasoning. Now, this involves using your feelings as evidence for their argument, and it can also be called begging the question. It's kind of like a merry-go-round of logic where you just keep going in circles, but you never get anywhere. And it happens when an abuser tries to prove something by saying it's true because it's true without giving any reasons or evidence. It's like you're trying to say you're right just because you say so. That obviously doesn't make for a very convincing argument. It's a bit like chasing your own tail in an argument, And it might look like you're doing something, but you're literally not getting anywhere. So let's say that you have some concerns, like, I have a hard time trusting you because you've lied to me before. And the abuser might reply with, well, you don't trust me because you're always doubting everything I say. It's actually your constant doubt that's causing the lack of trust. The logic kind of takes a spin and goes nowhere fast. Could be a merry-go-round, could be a hamster wheel, right? These abusers, they use this fallacy to invalidate your feelings, making them question their own judgment and sanity. The abuser keeps blaming you for how you feel, which honestly just chips away at your self-esteem. And guess what? If you already have low self-esteem, it's like throwing gasoline on that fire. Plus, it keeps you in constant defensive mode. It's emotionally draining, and it stops you from actually dealing with the issues in your relationship, which honestly, that's the underlying goal of an abuser. Now, a favorite in the abuser's playbook, fallacy number 4, appeal to authority. Abusers sometimes pull this one out relying on their authority to shut you down. This is where they bring out the big guns, relying on their perceived authority to shut you down. It's like they're standing there saying, I've got this all figured out. You're just overcomplicating things. And that's appeal to authority. They just crown themselves as the expert in whatever topic is being discussed, whether they are or not. So you might say something like, I think we need to learn how to communicate more effectively in our relationship. And the abuser will say, you don't understand relationships like I do. I've been in plenty of them, and I know that talking too much just makes things worse. Trust me, I've got more experience. I told my abuser once that we had spent too much for the house on my personal credit card, and his solution was to say, you're just really bad with money. I have no debt, so I should handle the finances, and let's open a joint account. Over time, as that message kept being reinforced to me in other ways, I began to believe that he was better with money, and that led me to pay less attention to the finances, let him take the reins, and ultimately causing near financial ruin because, unsurprisingly, he was actually terrible with money. This manipulation tactic undermined my judgment and my agency. So why do they pull this stunt? Well, it's really just all part of their strategy to keep you second guessing yourself and your own judgment, like in my own story. It's a never-ending game. The more they can make you doubt yourself, the more control they can maintain. It's their way of saying, I'm in charge here. And that can be maddeningly effective at keeping you under their thumb. But I want you to remember, just because they play the authority card doesn't mean they're playing fair. Next, the 5th fallacy, slippery slope. Picture this, okay? If you leave me, your life is going to fall apart. You're never going to make it on your own. So in the context of an abusive relationship, the slippery slope fallacy involves the abuser making exaggerated and unfounded claims about the dire consequences that will follow if you don't comply with whatever they're asking you to do. Now, the abuser will blow things out of proportion. They'll make baseless claims at how terrible things will be if you don't do exactly what they want. They do it to control and to scare you. They're trying to make you believe that going against their wishes will lead to total disaster. Like the relationship will fall apart or your life will go to ruins. You're going to be single forever. It's just a way to keep you under their thumb by using fear and intimidation. So you might say something like, I want to go to dinner with my friends. It's been a while since I've hung out with them. And the abuser replies, you always want to go out with your friends. If you keep this up, you're going to start meeting other people and eventually you're going to cheat on me. Then our relationship will be destroyed. Now, the abuser will exaggerate the consequences of your actions. The slippery slope trick is all about controlling you and making you feel anxious. Abusers use it to make you think that any little thing that you do against their wishes is going to be a disaster. They want you to feel scared so that you'll keep doing what they want and you're going to stay isolated. It's a tool that they use to make sure that they feel in charge and make sure that you do what they say. So the red herring fallacy is up next. They're going to throw irrelevant distractions into the mix, diverting you from the real issue. Now, this one's like trying to have a serious conversation, but the abuser suddenly throws something in totally unrelated. You're talking about your relationship and they jump in with, why are we even talking about this when your mother is always causing problems between us? Talk about off topic. You might say something like, I've been feeling really hurt by your constant criticism lately, and I want us to work on communicating more positively. And they might reply with, you know what, actually, speaking of communication, before I forget, did you remember to get the groceries because we're running low on my favorite things? If this seems as simple to you as just a change of subject, let's actually look at that. Changing the subject involves a clear shift of topic, and the abuser isn't even generally trying to hide that that's what they're trying to do. But a red herring, that's a more subtle tactic. It introduces a seemingly related or relevant topic, but it isn't, and it diverts attention away from the main issue or concern. On to fallacy number 7, the post hoc fallacy. Now, this fallacy occurs when someone assumes that because one event happened after another, the first event must have caused the second. So it's like thinking that a rooster crowing causes the sun to rise just because the crowing precedes the sunrise. In an abusive relationship, this fallacy can be used to manipulate and blame the victim. Imagine a scenario where the victim expresses their frustration, right? You say, "I feel hurt because you yelled at me last night." And the abuser responds with a post hoc fallacy saying, "Well, you made me yell because you're always so frustrating to deal with." Here, they wrongly link the victim's behavior to their own outburst without providing any evidence for the connection. Now I want to connect the dots to blame shifting. You see how these are related, right? See, blame shifting is when someone doesn't want to take responsibility for what they did, so they shift the blame onto someone else. And that is precisely what is going on here with the post hoc fallacy. Instead of owning up to their own behavior, the abuser is saying, "You caused this because of what you did before." They're just passing the blame baton onto you. It makes you question your actions, makes you feel responsible for the abuser's behavior. You might start blaming yourself for all of their actions, thinking that somehow you've caused your own mistreatment due to the sequence of events. Now, abusers use this fallacy to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and shift the blame to you. And by making you believe that your actions caused the abuse, they maintain power and control in the relationship. You keep trying to do better for them. This fallacy serves as the abuser's goal of manipulating you and your perception into keeping you in that sort of state of self-blame and confusion. And it almost always results in you changing your behavior just to avoid these arguments. It creates a false cause and effect relationship that's just so frustrating and so damaging. Fallacy number 8, false equivalence. Now, this one is the most common and the most frustrating. They compare your legitimate concerns to just trivial issues. It's when the abuser unfairly compares two things that are not comparable, and they make them seem like they're equally significant or insignificant. It's like saying the abuser's occasional anger outbursts are just as bad as your habit of leaving dirty dishes in the sink. They're just not on the same level, but the abuser tries to make them seem that way. It's a sneaky tactic, and they use it to downplay serious issues and, once again, avoid taking responsibility. So imagine this scenario, okay? So you express concerns about your partner's angry outbursts and you say something like, "I feel unsafe when you yell and slam doors." Now, instead of addressing the issue, the abuser is going to respond with, "Well, you can be pretty loud when you're with your friends." What? Comparing a heated discussion with friends to explosive anger and door slamming? That is a classic example of false equivalence. Another example might be you bring up financial irresponsibility in the relationship, saying, "Listen, we're drowning in debt because you keep spending recklessly." And your partner counters with, "Well, you buy coffee every morning. That's a waste." You see what's happening? They're trying to equate coffee with just reckless spending. That is a false comparison. This fallacy invalidates your legitimate concerns by making them seem trivial or equal, but they're actually unrelated issues. This always leaves you feeling unheard and frustrated. So by making your concerns seem as inconsequential as everyday matters, the abuser ensures that you never hold them accountable for the real problems in the relationship. So there you have it, a false equivalence, the king of common yet infuriating fallacies that happen in abusive relationships. It's all about making your valid concerns seem petty as hell, and it conveniently serves their goal of, once again, dodging responsibility and keeping control. Logical fallacies derail conversations because they exploit various psychological and cognitive vulnerabilities. So first, many fallacies appeal to emotions rather than reason, and that triggers strong emotional responses that actually shift the focus away from rational conversations. Second, fallacies introduce confusion and distractions, and it's really easy to then forget about the conversation's original purpose. Third, some fallacies shift the burden of proof or responsibility onto the other party, and that really creates defensiveness. Here's an example of this one. The survivor says, "I feel unsafe and threatened in this relationship because of your controlling behavior and emotional abuse. I need you to acknowledge it and seek help. Go to therapy." The abuser says, "Prove it." Show me concrete evidence that I've ever done anything abusive or controlling. Additionally, they can appeal to ego and pride, and that leads to stubbornness and refusal to admit they're wrong. Classic move, right? A lot of people don't even recognize fallacies, especially without strong critical thinking skills, and that allows those that are using the fallacies, in this case abusers, to maintain control. Engaging with fallacy users is mentally exhausting. A lot of victims just shut down or disengage because, honestly, you feel like you're always losing in a circular conversation that feels like a battle, not a conversation. Abusers use fallacies often with a manipulative agenda because they want to dominate. So let's be honest, right? This is never going to be about a fair exchange of ideas when it comes to an abusive relationship. Now, what can you do when you're on the receiving end of these fallacies? It is so important to stay grounded and maintain your boundaries. I know how hard that is. You can say something like, I'm not engaging in this argument when you resort to personal attacks, or let's focus on the issue at hand. Please remember that your voice matters. Ultimately, I strongly suggest learning how to leave these relationships, and I teach how to leave in my signature program, the Trauma Bond Recovery course, and working one-on-one with me. Logical fallacies serve as circular, no-win arguments used by abusers to manipulate and control their victims in toxic or abusive relationships. Engaging in these manipulative conversations is only going to lead to you being frustrated, exhausted, and in emotional turmoil. So please set your boundaries. If you've recognized any of these fallacies in your relationship, I want you to share your experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more insights on toxic and abusive relationships. And check out my resources, the Trauma Bond Recovery course. You could work with me one-on-one, watch my library of educational webinars, or grab my books and journals. You are stronger than you think, and together we're breaking free from the cycle of abuse.